Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Zanzal, coach, ordained minister, grandma, mama of four, and a queer woman married to my lovely, gorgeous wife after I came out later in life. This is Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA plus stories, a podcast for everyone exploring identity, queerness, and what it means to live more truthfully, no matter our age or stage. We share stories of coming out, starting over, resiliency, how to navigate relationships, grief, joy, and building lives that actually fit us as human beings. No labels required, just curiosity, courage, and a little faith in this journey. Welcome. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Anne-Marie here. Okay, listen. Gonna give you some straight talk. Pun fully intended. If you've been Googling Am I Gay more than you've been Googling holiday presents, I have something for you. It's called the 3-Day Clarity Experience, and no, I won't make you climb a mountain or journal yourself into oblivion. For 3 days, we gently untangle the is this real thoughts, the why now spirals, and oh no, my life makes sense now moment. You'll laugh, you might cry, and you'll definitely stop feeling like you're the only one whose gaydar pointed inward at midlife. If you're craving clarity with compassion and a sprinkle of queer humor, come join me. It's time to finally get some answers and to maybe have a little fun. The link is in the show notes or at annemariezanzal.com workshops. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. This is Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA plus stories, and this is Anne-Marie Zanzal. As we step into the new year, I want to slow us down a moment because so often the month of January, the beginning of January comes with pressure. We've got to reinvent ourselves, fix everything, become someone new by next Tuesday. But queerness doesn't work like that. And long-term healing doesn't work like that. Building a life beyond coming out certainly doesn't work like that. Change, especially the kind that actually lasts, happens over time in layers and conversations in community, which is why I'm so grateful to introduce someone who will be walking alongside me and alongside you as we move into what I call the beyond stage. I want you to meet Anna Empey. Anna is a collaborator, a creative partner, and a deeply thoughtful human. She's also someone who's done profound deconstruction work, particularly around Mormonism, and understands firsthand what it means to untangle faith, identity, belonging, and loss all at the same time. Because when we come out or when we wake up to a truth we can't unknow, we just don't gain clarity. We often lose things too. Certainty, community as we once knew it, versions of ourselves we worked very hard to become. And Anna knows this terrain intimately. She knows that deconstruction isn't about burning everything down. It's about asking what's worth carrying forward, what needs to be grieved, and what still might be sacred on the other side. Throughout this year, Anna will be joining me as a guest on the show to talk about what it actually looks like to create a queer life beyond coming out. Not the Instagram version, not the overnight transformation, but the real one, the one that builds slowly with tenderness and shared common humanity. Anna Empey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me, Anne-Marie.
It's so nice to have you here. If you want to hear more of Anna's own personal story, you can find it. I will link it to the podcast show notes below. But Anna has been on the podcast before, but we have been working together for the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's true. We have. It's been a wonderful experience and a journey, right?
It has been a journey. I always like it when I'm doing stuff now, I remember when I first met Anna, I think about 4 years ago, and we were designing my second website because I designed my first. I would never advertise, tell anybody to do that, but I did, like a lot of new entrepreneurs. And Anna, I had my first meeting with Anna, and then we decided to work together. And then she's asking me all about my values and what I believe in and what I think. And I'm like, I don't effing care. Just build me a website. Not understanding any why she was asking all those questions. But as we work together and as I have built this business, I realized the importance of those questions. So thank you, Anna, and thank you for being patient with me.
It's all part of the journey, and honestly, I do think it is ironically part of the beyond part of us becoming and being our best selves, right?
Why do you say that?
I say that because our values can change over time. The things that matter to us can change a little bit, and then suddenly it's not a little bit, it's a lot of bit. And if we take the time to reflect and be clear on who we are and really align with what matters the most to us and being so okay with that and doing it maybe over and over and over and learning to do that as you go, life is a lot easier if you have that ability. And that's part of the process. And a lot of people like to call that resilience. And I also, you can call that resilience, but and you do need that. I do see resilience as a skill and the ability to evolve and change and be okay while we evolve and change.
It is a skill that you can master. Sometimes we're not given those tools as younger people, but as time goes on, we realize that we can't stay stuck. So we have to, like, for those of us who are, I would say, wanderers and seekers, often really learn to develop resiliency. In fact, I do real resiliency is like sort of part of my spirituality. Pick myself up, dust myself off, and get moving, After a time sometimes of grief and really thinking about what I'm experiencing as well. So, we're gonna talk a little bit beyond the big reveal today. So, we're talking about coming out, and we have some news for you. Coming out is not the finish line. I It's so funny because I named this podcast Coming Out and Beyond like 5 years ago when we started it. And now the beyond is so much more relevant to me than it was 5 years ago because what I have learned with the women that came out with at the same time, it's been almost 10 years for me now, is that it doesn't, that was not the finish line. Coming out, even getting divorced from your spouse, none of that is the finish line. So clarity often creates more questions, not fewer questions. And it can feel disorientating and liberating at the same time. So, what I bring to this conversation is I have my own later in life coming out and the myth of instant relief. What do you bring to the conversation?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's about stepping outside of an identity. Who I was before was my whole identity.
Mhm.
Recognizing was, yes, coming out was really the first step in the courage to live authentically and what that journey looked like because it's not just one and done. And when I first started, I really hoped that it would be, and
Mhm.
I'm okay that it's not. It's actually beautiful that it's not.
Well, we come out all the time, you know, because it is not one and done. Every time you say my wife, you come out. Or even if you say my girlfriend, or so it is not this one and done thing. And people think that we come out once, like we have the grand coming out over a couple of months and then it's over with. That's actually not true. That's one thing I've learned about the beyond, that the coming out is never done.
Yeah. And what I would say is also like, you know, I think it points to that too, is like, how do I find belonging in the face of the lack of it? Or in the places where it's obvious that they don't want me to belong in those spaces? And then how do I find that? And how do I assure that as I shift and as other things shift? And then where do I find the source of that? And what does those iterations look like? And being really, really okay with that and how to do that, because I have done that many, many times, and will probably keep doing it for the rest of my life, which sometimes I have to still swallow and accept that that's the case, and I don't let myself think too far about all of it once because I can't fathom what's gonna happen in the future that far. I'm actually okay not knowing this or having certainty about the future. It's better for me to not know.
Well, and I also think I really want to, I'm very conscious of the audience that is listening right now. And a lot of them are just starting on this journey. And so we want to remind everybody that Anna and I have been out 10 plus years. Anna's been out, I think, about 14 or 15 years. We've been out a long time. So we are looking at this sometimes with a different lens than somebody who is just coming out. So I would love to name some of the myths about coming out. So one of it is I find this all like so normal for my people. Once I say it out loud, I'll know what to do. So you tell your spouse, you tell your children, you tell your parents, you tell whoever that's important in your life that you're gay. And then you are barraged with questions by people about what your next step is. And guess what? A lot of times we do not know that next step. I also find that a lot of times people around us are seeking clarity and they're coming to us for that clarity. And we just possibly cannot give them to them now. And and then another myth, once I come out, I'll feel settled. And I do think that a lot of times when people first come out, they do feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. I mean, I felt that way. Like it was really, really, really freeing. But then a whole bunch of new questions formed that I didn't even think about.
Absolutely, and I would say definitely was freeing for me because for me, the I consider my, like, full coming out, that was actually it'll be 10 years ago in July, this
Okay.
upcoming July.
So can you define that for our listeners? What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that, that's when I told my parents. That's when I posted on social media. That's when it was like, I'm not gonna openly deny my sexuality anymore to anyone.
To make anybody comfortable.
Make other people comfortable. Absolutely. And, like and I don't know what this looks like, and it did take a big weight off. And then there was a journey because of my relationship with Caitlin and what that looked like. We had to still so, like, the coming out, that happened all the way up to when we got married in 2018, and for me, it was really, like, exactly what you're talking about, like, what are those next steps? And I had to really learn how to listen to my own voice and what I wanted, and
Mhm.
absolutely, people want that clarity. People my family wanted to make sure I wasn't gonna turn into something that they're afraid of because they don't know as much about queer community or queer people, right? The perception of other people's fears because they want me to be happy and safe, and that's where they were coming from, but it was a lot to navigate for sure.
Well, yeah, and a lot of times, especially like, Anna comes from a Mormon family and where the in the Mormon church villainizes queer people. So, and when you villainize a whole group of people, there's a lot of stereotypes and things that are just wrong about the community. So, I bet your family was like, oh, she's going to be like having sex with everybody and she's going to be using whips and chains.
She might turn into an alcoholic and a drug addict and, like, get it because in that community goes those things and that experience goes side by side because that's the experiences that people have to cope with the way that queer people are
Yeah.
villainized, right?
Right.
So,
So sometimes when you're villainized and you don't do the self work to be able to stand up to that kind of scrutiny or questioning by your family and stuff, you do turn to alcohol and drugs because it's a coping mechanism. And there's no, I mean, people do that. And so that is why often that alcohol and drugs and queerness are so linked together. I'm sure you had expectations, you just spoke about them, you thought they were all gonna be done, but then what actually happened? Because it was I mean, you were sort of closeted with your wife for, like, 3 or 4 years before you got married, right?
so we were together for 7 years before we got married, and we
Okay,
were closeted for about 5.
okay.
Well, to my family, she did not come out until a couple years till, about a year after me, and so, technically, we're still kind of closeted 6 years. I knew they started to get suspicions after I came out. So, yeah, it was a long time, and we also lived in Utah at the time, so there was a lot we were trying to navigate, and what I really was searching for so much, right? Like, I would meet people and then be like, "Oh my gosh, can you please just tell me, like, what are the next steps?" And the answer I would get all the time is, "Well, it's gonna be specific to you and what you want." And I did not like that answer,
No, just tell
but
me what to do.
just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, I'm a farm kid. Give me a system, give me a process, the plants grow, it's fine, it'll be fine. And it wasn't really like that at all. And it really did give me a lot of relief because, okay, I'm not gonna hide anymore. I don't have to hide anymore. If I do still wanna be quiet about it, I get to choose and I get to have a say. So that's where a lot of my relief came. I get to have a say for the first time in a really long time, and that's pretty cool. And then it was also I had to learn how to listen to myself. What do I want now? And then I had to practice listening to my partner, my girlfriend, and my now wife. What does she want? How do we support each other? What are we creating? What are we building? What's the point of all of this? And it really came down to like, what do I want? And also inside of that, I did do my main deconstruction. So I had to navigate like, am I worthy of being loved? Am I worthy of God's love? Am I worthy of living? All of these conversations that I really had to confront because that religion really kind of gave me like it's better for you to be dead and not alive or take your own life. It's better to do that than to be alive and gay and happy. So there wasn't a lot of models for me.
Yeah. Did you do the deconstruction of your faith before or at the same time or after?
I would
Is that a
say
hard question?
it's a hard question because it was my identity. So the choice I made to kiss Caitlin was like the beginning of the end of my faith deconstruction. And I say
Mhm.
that because when I kissed her, I knew it would never be the same, but I still was really hopeful that I could work it out. In 2015, the church came out with what the LDS queer community calls the exclusion policy. Um, and sadly, in I don't know if it was 2024 or 2025, they made almost the exact same policy for the trans community as their standard policy, which is super harmful and very diminishing. And that policy really is what, and that was in 2015. So it really kicked off and closed the door on the hope for me.
Mhm.
So it really made that's when I was like, okay, I can't be part of this anymore. Who am I now and who do I want to be? And I had to do that already, right? Because it took a lot of courage to be queer and still stay inside of a religion that didn't really want you fundamentally. And it wasn't until 2015 that they made it very clear, really, in my mind. Oh, yeah, we're just going to reinforce that doctrine, that principle that we would rather not have you here. And it's better for you to go and be with God than to be happy and alive and go against what we're teaching.
Me, I do think your queerness has been the greatest gift of all
It
because
really
uh,
is.
you were a good church girl and you probably would have lived within that system most likely. Do you think or I mean
Be my plan.
I know a lot of your family members have deconstruction, but do you think that if you were like so if you were a typical straight girl, you'd probably have 3 kids by now, maybe 4.
Maybe 7. I have friends who have 9 kids, and I love them, and that but that's the thing, yeah, if I was a typical straight girl, I would've stayed in that, I would've lived in that, and I would say, quite frankly, Mormon Anna was just a lot more like, "It's my job to save people and bring people to Jesus." A lot,
Mhm,
as
mhm.
far as, like, the Jesus I knew inside of that religion, right? And, but I was still very kind. I was still very generous. I was still very compassionate. I was still very, let me show up and love you even if you don't know how to be loved. And I think that's just because of my formative experiences where it was bullied so much. And also, like, my goal was to be as Christ like as possible inside of that religion. And so a lot of that has transferred into healthier ways where I'm not compromising myself anymore as I've learned and developed. But, uh, yeah, I'm different. I swear more now. I didn't really swear then. Yep. Sorry, guys, but I'm still a lot the same, but also a lot different because I allow myself to see the world differently, and I'm not ashamed of who I am, right?
Right. When you said you wanted, your role was like you felt like your role within the Mormon church was a proselytizer. You wanted to bring people to Jesus, the Jesus that you knew. I'm just curious, what was the Jesus that you knew was like inside of Mormonism? And then I'm going to
Yeah.
ask a follow-up question is how has Jesus changed?
Yeah. The Jesus I knew and the God I knew were a little different. By that I mean, um, it was a little bit more rigid. There's still compassion, but it was more rigid. And it was very much so the more literal interpretation of who Jesus was from the King James version of the Bible. Something funny about me, Anne-Marie, that a lot of people don't know is that I've read the New Testament at least 15 times and I've read the Old Testament about 10. And I used to have over 400 scriptures memorized. Sometimes they still come out when I'm making funny jokes because it's how I navigate the nuances with my family. But really, the Jesus I knew then, he wasn't really judgmental, but he's gonna judge me when I get to heaven.
But that's such a dichotomy, right? Like
Exactly.
if you preach about a loving God and, you can bring anything to Jesus and all that, then how would you then it doesn't jive with a God that is gonna judge you when you get to heaven. It just
Right.
doesn't jive.
Exactly, and I will say there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in Mormonism, and people who are ex-Mormon or post-Mormon or who have left, a lot of them will talk about how they would see these dichotomies and then they would put them on a shelf for later and then their shelf breaks and that's was something that would lead them to leave. So the thing that broke my shelf really was my sexuality, but also all these other things that didn't quite make sense. Also, like in Mormonism, when you add in the other scriptures from the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants, they works is very important, right? There's a scripture that they repeat a lot. Faith without works is dead. So the concept of grace in traditional Christianity it's kind of there in Mormonism, but not really. There's repentance, there's asking for forgiveness, but grace is given. It's more like you got to do your best and then Jesus will make up for the rest. God will make up for the rest. Like because of what happened and what's available, but you got to do your part. There's steps you got to take, there's actions you need to do. So it's great. It's purpose driven. I loved that. I needed a purpose. And then I had to refine a whole new purpose. And God was a lot more like fire and brimstone from that perspective, which I did see was different than Jesus with how I was raised and how they're different now, whether it's God, source, universe, creator, how you see it. For me, it's a lot more it's actually even more nuanced and less defined, but I'm actually more comfortable with that. I feel the love, I feel the support. I do know there's purpose and meaning. I don't have all the answers. I'm not required to have all the answers. And it's really about trusting and allowing myself to receive and feel the love and support in my day-to-day life, in the nuances of the beautiful world around me, which I was obsessed with nature growing up. Again, farm kid out in the orchard. That is where I found God and that is where I found peace. And who Jesus really is for me now, I still believe Jesus is a great example of who we can be, how to treat each other, how to model ideals and behaviors that honestly, that's not typical or maybe super easy for us to embody, but those things are still important to me. As far as like the judgment stuff goes, I really let a lot of that go. Like, it's not actually my job to save people, it's more my job to be a leader. It's more my job to show up and be kind, give compassion, and maybe show them that there's other opportunities that are available and that's still going to be Christ-like. I also I don't really know, um, at this point where or how important, right, his sacrifice was for me, but I'm grateful that just even the concept that someone else out there would love other humans to do something that selfless, to me, that is the more beautiful part of that experience and those experiences that they bring to the table. So
Mhm.
whether you believe in that now and you really need it, cool. Good for you. I don't know how much I do. I don't know if I will teach my kids that we need to just praise Jesus all the time. And Caitlin might have some different interpretations when we get there, when we get to having kids, right? So
Well, but what I'm hearing is that you like the mystery. And within Mormonism, there wasn't a lot of mystery. It was like, do this and you get this, do this and you get this. And I am hearing somebody that almost is like a mystic because some people are really, really comfortable with the mystery of uncertainty, and some people aren't. And there are people that really need the answers. They just want to know what the answers are. And then there's some people that like, I'm really comfortable not having all the answers because what I like about that for myself in my own faith journey is that I can change, which is one of the I really, from where I was, 30 years ago to where I am now. Although I was never like somebody who was a proselytizer, my faith has always been very deeply personal. And it is what has shaped my life in a way because much like you, my grounding in faith was about compassion and love and serving other people. That's where my faith came from. And all the other stuff really, yeah, I heard it, but I don't know how much of it I took in. So, as you can see, both Anna and I grew up in conservative religious traditions. And just because we came out 10 years ago, I could sit here and talk to Anna for another hour about this.
oh,
And
probably hours and hours about it.
hours and hours talking about this. Um, it really fascinates me. I love to have a good theological conversation. But that's one of the things is that when you come out, even if you leave your church, if you don't leave your church, if you decide you hate your church, whatever happens, there's a lot of deconstruction around faith and what I actually believe in.
There really is a lot of deconstruction. What I'll say is it's okay for you to take the time. When some of that stuff happened, I felt a lot of pressure to like figure it out right now. But what I have learned more is that it's actually for me, it's better that I evolve because a principle I learned in an archaeology class that I took at BYU. We could pull a piece of pottery out of the ground and we could make assumptions about the meaning of it, but
Mhm.
we could be totally off. We could be totally wrong about the importance and significance of it. And I think that principle gave me more comfortability with the uncertainty. And the most conclusive answer I've come to is that after this, I'll know what's after this. And what matters now is who do I be now? Who do I want to be? How do I serve others? The things that I still care about and value. And that's where I found the most certainty that I could have a control and say over. And that's actually guided me the last 10 years to where I am now, even though looking back, you can always see it really clearly. But sometimes looking forward, you can only see one or two steps in front of you. And there's also a Mormon song that talks about that. And I'm like, okay, one or two steps is actually enough for me. And I'm willing to live with that comfortability. And if you need
Mhm.
10 steps, that's okay too. You can look and find the steps by finding other people who are living and doing things you want to do or becoming who you want to become. You can find people who can support you and mentor you and having some of that clarity as long as they hold the space for you to look for the nuances for yourself.
Well, yeah, and actually that's what we're doing right now is talking about coming out and about how community and guides and people that have been there before you can really help you on those journeys and on that path.
When I kicked open the door of coming out and then also recognizing it wasn't the end all be all, that there was more there, there was that relief, but also there was grief. I had to then navigate the experiences with my family and how do I build a bridge and keep my family together? They're staying Mormon, a lot of them. A lot
Mhm.
of them are not now, but I didn't know that then. So there was a lot of grief. There was a lot of loss. I was also super excited because I'm like, heck yes, I get to be me. And then also like, oh wait, I don't know who I really all the way am or oh my gosh, who's Anna? Okay, there might be a more helpful question than who am I, by the way. And then the next one was like this, like, oh, okay, I'm like out of this cage, but then also like, wait a second, who else is around me who wants to get where I'm at? Or maybe we don't understand where we are. Can we even connect? And so navigating that loneliness, because there's also quite a few friends that they stayed Mormon and I'm not in their life anymore.
Yeah.
So and then also losing my friends who were queer, who have also took their lives. There's a lot of loss that did come in those experiences.
Knowing that you and Caitlin were together for a while, and a lot of times when a couple is closeted, they're very insular. They just have each other. Do you think that contributed to your loneliness? Or did it exist in that way?
I'd say no because I was still very involved in, like, the LDS queer community, and I was still working very hard to build and keep the relationships with my friends who were Mormon and my friends who were married and Mormon and, like, building that and developing that because I didn't wanna lose them, right? Like, I'm somebody who when I love someone and I openly say that, like, that just doesn't disappear for me.
Mhm,
It's something that's there always. I care deeply about people. I've cared deeply about people my whole life. So
mhm.
I think the loneliness was that I just didn't feel like anyone would understand me. And what I really think that was about is that I didn't fully understand myself. And Caitlin understood me the most, but it still was too much weight to expect her to understand me better than myself.
Let me ask you something. I hear you said you did a lot of caretaking of the people that were straight in your life and who were Mormon. Do you think using all that energy to take care of them, you just didn't have enough time to create queer relationships with people? You just didn't have enough time to build that community. Do you think that
I
because
think
I
there's
know you
some
were in the LDS Mormon community, but you were a leader in that, and there is a difference between that and having your own community.
Yeah, and I would say that, like, we did everything we could to build both, right? But also the people right alongside me were navigating the same challenges and depths of what I would call an identity crisis
Right.
right alongside me, right? Like, who am I? Who am I now? How do I deal with what my family's responding and how people are treating me and how my church community is treating me. So there's like all those layers and then we're trying to show up and connect with each other as queer people and inadvertently we were re-traumatizing each other and hurting each other and we try to have grace and compassion and kindness and forgiveness but in some of those situations, it got really hard, really sticky, really tricky, really fast because we were all trying to figure out where do I belong? Who actually is here to love me? And then you'd get conflicting advice, right? Like I had so many people who just said, just cut your family out. You never need to talk to them again. Like that's the only way. That's the only way to be happy. And for me, that was not what I really wanted. Like I did not want to cut my parents out. 'Cause then I feel like I would be doing to them what they could have done to me, which
Mhm,
isn't really aligned with my values. Why would I cut someone out? If they're willing to sort out how we can love each other without agreeing or me having to be straight, and I know that's not everyone's stories. If people are disowning you, it makes sense for you to cut them out and find your chosen family. So nuances. Like I even had people say, "Oh, you should not date Caitlin because she's not more out than you." And I was like, that's not what I want to have happen. I want to be with her. I'm gonna work it out with her." So having the rigidity of black and white experiences made it hard when I was living in the middle and figuring out what I wanted and didn't want.
well, yeah, because I think that that leads into what I was just gonna say is that a lot of times we've come out and you think you're gonna feel more sure, like, about everything. I remember I was 9 months into dating my now wife, Tanda, and, I mean, we were having a hot and heavy relationship, all the stuff that goes with that. And I remember saying to her, "Well, if I'm gay," and she looked at me and she said, "If you're gay?" She goes, "You've been in a relationship with me now for 9 months. She goes, "You're definitely not straight." And it was just like, first of all, that was a very subconscious thing that came out. But I tell my clients even now, Anna, that like even like 5 or 6 years, I mean, what, 8, 9 years later, not a lot, but once in a while, I do think to myself, would it have been easier if I had stayed in my straight life? And then I inevitably answer no. And because there is a cost to both, there's a cost to coming out, and then there's a cost to staying closeted. And which to me, at this point in my life, I would never, ever, ever, ever in a million years go back to my straight life. And as you know, personally, I've had some significant loss with all of that. And I think for people, it's not all settled. You know, like, why am I still questioning everything? Even though I've told the whole freaking world I'm gay. And I think it takes time for stuff to work through. What are some of the things?
Yeah, I'd also say that it's really important to recognize that there's some rewards, right?
Mhm.
Because it can be and feel risky, right? And yes, we're talking about opening the door, but continuing to open the door, continuing to be authentic and find and live your truth, right? And to belong to yourself first. And then to the people who want to have you, who have space for the nuances of who you are and who you're becoming. What does that mean? Well, you have to kind of go and experiment with it and see. But what I also know is like having the space for you to be like, oh, tried that, did not like that experience, tried that, and actually, hmm, I think I want to try some more of that. And I'm not talking just like sexual experiences, I'm
Because
talking
all kinds
all experiences, all sorts of experiences. Meeting, like, okay, I wanna try in the belief that the sky's purple, okay? That's what it might feel like when you're shifting your identity. My gosh, I have to admit something that I pretended it wasn't that way my whole life. Now, I'm not saying the sky's purple, but it's a great example, right? Uh and having the freedom to do that, and then also finding community that's okay for you to change and evolve is so that space. And then even just learning how to breathe. That seems silly, but knowing that if you breathe in through your nose and you breathe out your nose, that's going to calm you down. And if you breathe in and out your mouth, that's going to give you adrenaline, and that's going to help you get some more
energy.
cortisol and other things in your body. It's such a simple thing, but it's so important that you can learn that you can belong and you do belong, even if you're not certain who you are. And I would say for me, I had to figure out what were the three things that are going to be my guiding compass, the places that are my absolute certainty. First off, I know that I'm loved and cared for and supported 100%. This goes back more into my spirituality, but that's the case. Whether I can see it or not and I don't understand it all, it's all working out for my good inside of that support for me. That's the first thing. The second thing is, who are my two people that I
Mhm.
can turn to 100% with or without a little judgment, but they mostly don't wanna judge me. Great.
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
therapist, and for me, it was Caitlin. My therapist and Caitlin, right? Eventually, that my therapist became a coach or other people that were
Yeah, but
there.
you've always had some sort of professional support.
Yep, 100%. Yep. I actually will not live my life without someone in that supportive role for me, because I do better not making my wife be the only support for me.
Well, it's also better for her. And there's some things that our spouses cannot support us on, and we really do need professional help. Professional, if you can, hopefully your insurance pays for it. If it doesn't, hopefully you can afford it. And there are always free options out there, but finding somebody to be your support person is really crucial.
And then the third thing for me was really about learning to listen and ask myself my own reflective questions and trusting my own inner voice. What do I need right now? What do I want? Could I want if I didn't know what I wanted? So learning to ask more powerful questions and then listening to that voice and what I needed moving forward.
It sounds like you had a lot of confusion, but you also realized that you weren't doing anything wrong because when we are confused, it means we're not living on autopilot anymore. And how did you learn to trust your inner voice? Because I think that's one of the hardest things because as women, we have been told from childhood, conditioned from childhood, that our inner voice isn't right. And it's sometimes through people saying your inner voice isn't right, but also like for example saying things to girls like like they're in a relationship with a boy and they're like, but this is hard, and boy relationships with boys is hard and it's going to be hard, and and so our inner voice is saying get out, get out, get out, and then societal voice is saying, but it's just hard, you got to give him a chance. I mean, that is just a minute little thing, but how did you learn to listen to your voice?
Yeah, I think the first step for me was really, what is my voice? Like, what's actually my voice? And the question that I answered is, what's true for me right now? What's true for me right now?
Like the right now part. Because I think when people are confused and trying to listen to their voice, they're trying to figure out their whole entire lives. And when we can't be 18 steps ahead.
Well, also, you can't figure out your whole entire life in 30 seconds or less. That's so unrealistic. Ask people who are much, much older. Okay. The oldest person I've ever met was 103 years old. And I asked them a question. And the question I said was, "Are you happy you made it to here?" And they said, "Looking back, yes. But yesterday, no."
I
And I
love that.
said, "Fair." And then they're like, "Yeah, it's really more about what about right now." And that's
Mhm.
about all they would say to me about it. Then they went back to watching their TV show, right? But
Well, yeah, because I love that answer. That's so unbelievably human. It's
because
like,
we're human.
well, but also too, like, I think people assume that once they come out, everything's going to be fixed and hunky dory, and unicorns are going to be galloping by carrying rainbow flags. And yes, sometimes it is magical and fun and wonderful, and being with your community and having fun with them. And sometimes it's hard.
And sometimes it is. And I would encourage you to look, like, if you're in a situation, I also would really encourage you to look at this. And this thing is actually what freed me up and helped me deconstruct the religion and what I wanted to believe and what I wanted to carry with me and what I wanted to let go. And that is this. So, anytime the word should comes out of your mouth, that is someone else's rules, expectations, criteria, or values and for living. I started a I'm gonna say a witch hunt. I don't love that term, but that is what I did. I went like crazy after any time I thought the word should or said the word should. I really got clear. Wait a second. And then I learned could. Because I can do anything. You can do anything. You can do anything you want. And my dad also taught me this principle, and I'm very grateful he taught me this. He's like, Anna, you've got a driver's license. You've got a car. You could drive to Canada right this second if you want to. There might be consequences for that choice, but you could do that. And I used to really think, and I used to box myself in a corner a lot. And I've had to learn how to turn around and look at the other options that are out there. And that's why I like the word could, because I could do anything I want.
Well, I like your should thing as well too. When you notice it should, you're exactly right about that. Shoulds come from other people's values or institutions' values. I also I always say, pay attention to when you're saying, I'm sorry. Women say, I am sorry all the time. And now that I pointed it out to you, Anna, you will notice so many women saying, I'm sorry to you. And a lot of times I'll be in a grocery store and somebody will walk in front of me with their cart. They inevitably go, I'm sorry. And I'm like, why are you saying you're sorry? And when I do this exercise with the women I work with, they're always stunned because we are told as women that we're not allowed to take up space. And so all the time we say, I'm sorry because we're taking up space. Yeah. And so I love that from this podcast episode. Don't should yourself and pay attention to how you're saying sorry. Do you really need to say sorry? Is it something are you really actually sorry for? You'll find that it comes out of your mouth much more than you expect it to.
Yeah. I also think right in like what you're saying that those shifts are not things that you can just change in an instant. You have to be intentional. You got to focus on it. You've got to practice it. And then suddenly it will become like breathing. Like should is not a word you're going to hear out of my mouth very much unless I'm around my family a lot. And then it starts to come out a little bit more and then I have to like readjust, U-turn, wait, I do wanna go to Canada. But really it's looking and slowing down a little bit, being okay with where you are, being okay with where you're going next, and allow yourself to change and make those changes and continuing. And to me, it's about stacking and compounding those little micro changes and that practice of listening. And even if you don't listen perfectly, if you listen 5% better, you're going to be happier. Even if you listen 1% better, and I say 1% is all it takes because this comes from my growth business mindset. And that's because if an airplane was 1 degree off to land in this part of Orange County, they would land in the ocean instead of on the tarmac. It's just 1% that you need. That's the difference. And if you land in the ocean, cool. Just reroute so that you don't land in the ocean next time. It's not about the perfection. I also think women were kind of trained that we have to be perfect. We got to look.
All right. And there is no right way to do this coming out thing. That's
Yeah.
old gays told Anna that in the beginning when she's like, just tell me what to do. And they're like, well, this is something you sort of have to figure out not figure out. I mean, you get guidance and all, but there's no clear path because everybody does it differently.
You want it that way because you actually want to be able to have a say. You want to be able to have a choice in the life that you're creating. So, yeah, there's some fundamental things that you got to work on. Trusting yourself, being confident to try and, like Anne-Marie said, get back up the resiliency part and go again at it. But we really want that. That is what we're asking for when we start to take the risk to be our authentic selves.
Right. And Anna alluded to it before. This takes time. This is not something that the part where you're coming out is really the first year. It depends on how long you are. Everybody's different about that. It can be 1 year, it could be 10 years. But, the thing is, that growth takes time. It's not something you can rush. Um, but it is so worth it if you let yourself do it. Because if you allow yourself to grow, you will become comfortable in your own skin, I think, for most people. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think with loss that there are actually things you have to do that help you complete the feelings and the experiences of loss. That's why there's a grieving experience and a grieving recovery, which is a new mindset that I've been learning this fall as I've been processing my grief from even 10 years ago. And that it's more than time. I also have to acknowledge it. I've got to look at it. I've got to take what I need to learn from it and then put what I want on my cart or put it in my backpack to carry it with me, and then I can keep going. And sometimes that part takes time. But just saying, "Oh, it'll just take time." If you actually just ignore this for 10 years, you're going to be right where you are right now. So I encourage you, don't be afraid to just take one step or two steps at a time. It's okay if you got to sit down and breathe. It's okay if you've got to ask for support. It's okay if you don't want to do it by yourself or you need some moments to yourself. All of that is the beautiful part about this experience. And really, what makes it so challenged is not the idea that it's wrong to be queer, because it's not wrong to be queer. It's the most beautiful thing, like Anne Marie said. It's the best thing that ever happened to me that this is who I am and who I was created to be. What more is challenging is how long I am sad how long it took me to know that that was true. So I really hope the tools we talked about today can really help you get that crap out of your ear. Get that crap out. It's not the truth. It doesn't have to be the truth.
No, it doesn't. And, I'm smiling because I was twice your age when I came out. When you came out about 25, like officially, and I was like 50. And so that thought about regret. I don't have a lot of regret. I mean, I wish I had some experiences, like, for example, raising my children with my wife. Those things I regret. But I don't regret my actual life, because I had a lot of really wonderful experiences there. But I realized that I don't want one of my values and one of my choices is I don't want to live with regret. I can't because I would be beating myself up all the time because there are things, markers in my life, which I wish I had changed things. But I think we all do that. I think we all have markers in life in which we wish we would change things. So, what I know from working with people who are dying, people regret the things they haven't done. And if they do have done something that they really didn't, if they regret something they have done, they often make meaning out of that experience. And so it becomes a life lesson. Don't want to spend my life in regret because it takes up a lot of energy.
It really does. It just means I've got some more accepting to do. And that's a perfect place to start.
So we have a question for you. If coming out was the door or is the door for you, what room are you standing in right now?
And then what might it be like if you let yourself stand there for a little while without judgment, without the shoulds, and really without rushing the need to redecorate?
So, this episode is the beginning of my conversations with Anna about big life questions over the next. We're going to have, I think, 5 or 6 episodes this year. And we have some great stuff coming for you in the summer, but we're just not ready to talk about it yet. But this episode, we spoke about a lot of things. So, we spoke about deconstruction of faith. First of all, I find Mormonism fascinating, and I've learned a lot from Anna. So now, when I have Mormon clients, I'm off very comfortable with Mormonism now. And I also have learned a lot from her deconstruction journey. And we've also talked about pace. Like, this is not a race. You don't have to push yourself to go any faster than you need to. Take your time. There's a lot of grief around this journey. And we also talked a little bit about the importance of community, but we have a whole episode about that coming up in the next couple of months. So, reminding everybody here that this is not a solo journey.
Yep. And also, it's okay if you don't have the whole map. And you're allowed to become who you are while you're in a relationship. It's okay to navigate the nuances. It's okay to support each other while you're going through that. And also, it's okay that this is it. And I would remind you that happiness is found in the moments of where you are when you can experience that gratitude. The destination is not as important as the journey, and that's something I have had to learn to accept. You can have happiness right where you are. Now I know for the people who have kids, you think I'm singing a children's song? I probably am. It's from Moana. That movie helped me construct my faith. Yes, it's not true, but it is true. You can find happiness where you are in this moment, and it's okay if that changes.
You're allowed to have joy in this moment, even if you're getting divorced and all your kids are mad at you. You're allowed to have joy. And that is really like, I think there's such a misconception about what happiness and joy is, the feel good emotions, the good emotions. People think that we're supposed to feel them all the time. And yes, it would be lovely to, but being able to feel those emotions in times of distress or when times are hard, they're so life giving to us to have that feeling of joy or happiness or peace or any of the good feelings that come along with it. So, Anna, share the closing truth.
Yeah. And with that, we'll talk more about the positive stuff in some coming episodes as well. We're not here to rush you into a new life. We're not here to tell you it has to look a certain way or be a certain way. You get to have a say in what that looks like. And we are here to walk with you as you grow and as you become who you want to be on your terms.
So until next time, be gentle with what's unfolding. Nothing meaningful is late.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA+ stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.